Well, you take these horses here, real calm genetics, but one of the things that's often used as a novel stimulus to look at genetic differences in animals is just taking an umbrella. It opens up real sudden. It's used in dogs. What you're doing is you're seeing the startle, sudden novelty. How much do they react? That's the genetics. Because you can have animals that have a flighty temperament, but if you carefully habituate them, then they don't act flighty. Now the thing is, the way an animal perceives the world is, it can be kind of rigid. Because in the mind of the cattle, a person on a horse is different than a person on the ground. So if you have cattle that are trained to tolerate people on a horse, maybe they got a 2-foot flight zone to a horse. If they've never been taken in and out of a pen by a person on the ground, they now have a 25-foot flight zone on the ground. That gets a bit dangerous at a meat packing plant. Or you can have a horse that's been abused by a rider, so he's fine for people on the ground, like veterinarians and horseshoers. Or vice versa, he was roughed up while on the ground, so you can ride him, but he won't tolerate people on the ground. But you see, think about it. Man on a horse, man on the ground. That's a different picture. Because you want to understand animal behavior, you got to get away from words. They're sensory-based, not word-based. So they remember things as a picture. They remember things as a sound. I heard about an elephant that was terrified of diesel-powered equipment. Boy, if it ran with a diesel, it was bad. If it ran with gas, then it was good. Or maybe guys with beards are bad, because that's something they were looking at right when something bad happened. Now, when I first started my career, I thought I could fix everything with equipment. I thought if I could just build the magic cattle handling facility, everything's going to work just perfectly. Well, that's not the way it works out. Maybe my 20% that are really good would keep things good, but other people tend to slip into bad handling. You can't solve it all with equipment. I can solve about half of problems with the equipment. The other half is management. And you got to prevent bad from becoming normal. Let's look at some bads that have become normal in the livestock industry. Dairy cattle, the national average is 24% are lame. That's atrocious. That's something over the years they slowly got more and more and more lame cattle. Well, they got used to seeing them. Or you got bulldogs. They can't breathe. They can't walk. They can't have their babies naturally. How'd the bulldog get into that kind of mess? Because if you go to Google Images, type in bulldog's dilemma, you're going to get a 1935 bulldog that actually is a functional animal. Just selecting more and more and more for these extreme traits, we're getting more and more problems. One thing I'm concerned about is what I call biological system overload. The dairy cow now, you can't hardly breed her. Yeah, it's good to get lots of milk, but we're just getting more and more other problems. Somehow I think we need to start thinking about what would be optimal. Optimal is one of the things we need to be looking at, so we don't slip into bad becoming normal. Now, in writing up guidelines, whether it be for food safety or animal welfare, I want to get rid of things like properly. Don't say you got to clean a piece of equipment properly. What does that mean, properly? What's sufficient space? Research has shown that the normal human mind tends to drop out the detail. One thing about the autistic mind is I tend to remember all the detail. I'm going to have a cough drop, because I'm going to start coughing up a really big storm, and I don't really want to do that. But when you think in words, you tend to drop out the detail. You see, I'm also what's called a bottom-up thinker. For me to understand a concept, I have to think of a lot of different specific examples. When I think about a dog, I'm seeing a whole lot of specific dogs. When I'm thinking about cattle, I actually see lots of different cattle. And they're going to go in the cattle file. But we've got to have something that's clear, because I've worked on training a lot of people on doing audits. And you have a bunch of vague words, you're going to score it differently than you're going to score it. Here's something that's clear. All the pigs have to have enough space to lie down without being on top of each other. And I better say at the same time, because we got jokers now that will say, oh, well, they can take turns. Let me tell you, in 10 years of working on these audits now with McDonald's Corporation and others, I have seen every way to game the system that people can think of. It is just ridiculous. I had a guy, he ran a sausage plant, and he failed a McDonald's audit, and he was really furious, and he says, well, my pigs didn't fall down because ham is not part of the body. I'm going, please, excuse me? So then we had to write up a thing about the limbic and the non-limbic part of the animal. It's like getting really stupid. Now, to keep handling good, I want to score animal handling. I want animals walking and trotting, not running. I could score how many run, how many fall, how many move their heads off right when I catch them, or I move with an electric prod. And if we really get into the low-stress handling, how many kept the soft brown eye? Now, obviously, if you brand them, I don't think I can keep a soft brown eye. But I should be able to handle them. At the meat plants, I've done a little bit of eye scoring. And at one of the plants, we got to 50% of the soft brown eye at the restrainer. That's really doing good because they'll get that white eye way before they move. And we score vocalization at the plants. Typical big plants you got here, Dumas and Plainview and places like that. Out of 100 cattle, you've only got 1 animal, 2 animals that will moo in the stunning box. We score that. If you have more than 3 cattle mooing in the stunning restrainer, you fail the audit. It's just scored. Is he quiet or not quiet? Because when you score handling, that keeps it good. You know, if we didn't take micro counts on meat, imagine how gross everything would get. You never took any micro counts. You manage the stuff that you measure.